Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna, and for those of you who are new here, welcome. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be doing the second color along in Johanna Basford's World of Flowers, and if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. Alright, so as I did in that first video, I did pick this up from Target. If it is available on Amazon, I will link it below. And what we're working on is this page right here. I do plan to do this in a seasonal way. So this first one was winter with the cool blues. This is going to be spring, summer, and fall. You've noticed that I've colored in some things already, and that was actually necessary because they needed to dry before I can show you something that I've learned here on YouTube. So while I'm thinking about it, let me just take my mild liner and color this one in. Now, if you do this method, it doesn't have to be mild liners or Tombows. From what I've seen, it can be really any marker. It's just these are the ones that I had, and these are the colors that I wanted to use. So while that dries, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these to the side, and these are all the colors that I used. I used Tombow 761, 800, and 020. And then in the mild liners, I used these colors right here. These are just the regular mild liner highlighters because you can see the dot at the top, but this is the mild liner brush pen. I do have this color in the mild liner, but I didn't see it, and so I just pulled this out here. But either of one of them works, and those are the colors that I used for the flowers there. So I'm going to put all of this to the side. Now these are the 50 pack of Crayolas that I picked up recently. I did a haul video and I included that, but while I like storing them in this mason jar, I don't like using them out of the mason jar because I like to have the colors in front of me. Okay, so I've got them sorted out generally. So I've got my pinks and my purples. I've got my blues. I prefer the purples by the pinks. Oh, my pinks, my reds, and my purples, my blues, my greens. At the end here, it's probably off camera, I've got my grays and my black. At the top here, I have the oranges and the yellows and the browns. So this is how I've already segmented the Arteza and the Prismacolors. So these just happen to be in front of me. And so I color arrange them in the various tins, and in the other one, in a different video, I'll show you how I set that up. But it's easier for me to pick colors when it's laid out flat like this than when it's standing in the jar. So every time I want to play, either I just pull out the color family that I want to work in, or I put it out all like this. It's a small desk, so I don't have a lot of room, and so I need to try to be as organized as possible. But that's why it's all like this. And so what I wanted to show you in today's video as we color along is how putting a wash of a pen or a marker behind it can really bring some additional effects to your coloring. So we'll start with this one, and that was using this one right here. So a very standard yellow highlighter, although it's a bit more on the pale side. But now we can actually do some layering on top of it, because again, all of these are dry. This one is still going to be the most wet, and probably the one, if we don't work on something, it's going to be that one, because you don't want to work your color pencil on a wet background. So I'm just going to add some color to it. And I wanted to use the Crayolas just so that you guys can see the different products. Now the Crayolas, as compared to the Artezas, as compared to the Prismacolors, really is night and day. So it is a harder pencil because it is a cheaper pencil. And so the color payoff is not that great, and it does take a little bit more pressure in order to get it because it isn't as pigmented, but it still works fine. At least I think so. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell, I can tell already, but there is a slight darkening here between that one and this one. Now, coloring with markers is, to me, a lot easier than coloring with pencils because it just goes on the paper a lot quicker. But I think from what I've seen from people who do this layering effect, it is because you get a nice pop of color behind that you might not be able to achieve otherwise, unless you've got like really high-end pencils or markers or whatnot, where you can do some really light shading or some light coloring behind to just give some depth to your work. But I kind of like the idea because it just seems to pop more than any of these, and all of these were just pencil only. So I'm just going with some gold in the back here. And actually, I should remember, whatever I do for one, I do for the other. Because they don't have to look identical, but they should look similar if they are a similar flower. And for the spring toned flower, or this set right here, I am going to try to lean more towards pastel-y colors, because for spring and summer, I do need to make some kind of differentiation. And so I think when we get into summer, which is this one down here, this will be all more vibrant pinks and purples. I live in Hawaii, so the flowers you see in December generally are the same flowers you see in May or June or August. And so I wouldn't know how to differentiate a different color palette unless I kept this more cool toned and this more warm toned. But again, it doesn't really matter. But I do want them to look like distinctive, if not seasons, then definitely color palettes. All right, so I like how that looks there. Maybe we'll come in with some orange just in the middle here. And bring that out a little. And I did sharpen all of these pencils before I started, but this one keeps breaking. So my navy blue, that's why it's so short already, because every time I get it to a certain length, then it breaks. And so I'm not gonna have navy blue in this set apparently. Now I don't know how often I will be using these Crayola pencils. It does make you work more, which is, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but especially when you're getting into detail coloring like this, I just find it's easier to work with the Prismacolors or the Artisas. I kind of like how that looks. Don't know if we should bring a little bit darker in the center here. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so I think we're going to consider that done. Let's move on to this pink one right here, and we'll just put some color down. while you might not be able to see any color with this particular pink on pink, and especially with the shadowing, my filming setup is not really made for coloring, but it does seem to automatically add some texture, which I really kind of dig. Okay, that was bubblegum. Not that I think any of you are concerned on what the color is. I'm going to color this here. Again, we're just trying to get some contrast between the various elements. I don't know how much that actually did. The pen looks like a milky, dusty rose, but then the actual pencil color looks quite different from the barrel of the pen. So let's see what that does. It adds a little bit of like a gray cast to it, to be honest. I don't know if you guys can even see it on camera. I can see like a slight shadowing, but it's not very dramatic. And I think for the middle, we'll go something a little bit darker. But just for this very center here. And maybe bring it out a little bit. And then for the stamens there, let's color those in. So I'm going to put marker on top of the pencil and just color those in black. This is my Pigma micron in the 0.1, so it's the finest one that I have. Just to give it some contrast. Yeah, I'm not sure how I like it. That pale rose color did seem to dirty it up a little bit, so I'm gonna think about that. Might add something else, maybe something more purpley on there, but I think for now we're gonna leave that. Move on to this blue one, and I don't know why, but a lot of the shaped flowers like this, I tend to think are blue flowers. I don't know that I've ever seen a blue flower in real life, so I don't know why it makes me think it has to be like that, but it always does. So if you see, if I'm not doing a particular theme on a flower, more than likely I'm going to be coloring it, if it's pointing downwards, blue. Now obviously the exception is that one right there, and that's just because I didn't have another light enough blue highlighter to color it with. Now I really should have a brush to brush away those little pieces, just because if you have little pieces of color, it could actually smear. I think that's what probably happened here and maybe here, but I mean, when I'm doing my coloring, I'm approaching it as just a tool to relax. I'm not approaching this as if it's going to be a piece of art. Now, I would definitely like it to be pretty, but I'm not worried about the rules of shading and contrast and light or whatever. That's really not why I'm sitting down and doing this. So I'm just building up the base. If you notice, I didn't do anything out there because I don't want to go too dark, because I could put in something like this. And maybe we'll do right here. Again, because these are not as highly pigmented as those, I'm already not going to get the same color payoff as if I were using them. But you can still use them. It's just, it's a little bit more effort. And actually, I like how that looks. It's pulling a little warm for me, but that's fine. We'll go to these here. And that's actually definitely warmer than I thought it would be, but I didn't test it out first. I just put it on the page. I just knew these flowers were the same. And what happens if we put some of the gold on here? Or the orange? That's not bad. I don't know that that one is doing anything at all. If making it just look a tiny bit milky. And then around the edges, I do want to go a little bit dark. But I don't want it to make it solid. I just want to make there's a clear distinction between the center colored part and the outside. Now, I do watch a ton of videos here on YouTube, and I've been watching a ton of videos on ColorTube, which is just a genre of YouTube. It's like the planner community or beauty community, study tube or booktube. It's just a lot of videos. Once you start watching similar genred videos, will keep popping up. And if you have enough of them, you can actually identify yourself, if you wanted to, as one of those things that I just mentioned. But I actually like seeing the white of the paper sticking through. So some people will color so that it's an even, flat, smoothed surface. I don't necessarily do that because I kind of like how it makes it look more hand-drawn than otherwise. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's why I like keeping it as is. These here, I kind of want to lean into like this lemon yellow. Because again, I'm trying to convey spring and bright pops of color. Especially for those of you that actually go through the seasons, you might see, you know, after a long winter of all whites and things, it might be quite refreshing when you see spring actually show up with the greens and the flowers and the whatnot. Or at least I assume so. It's kind of the impression I get when I watch things from TV. Because it's just green. Or really green here in Hawaii. On the Big Island, you get seasons by way of where you are. So there is actually snow on Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, but that's at a really high elevation. Here on Oahu, it never gets cold enough to ever snow. At least not that I'm aware of. I think for that little back petal back there, I'll do something orange. And I do like how that little bit of green popping through looks. And so these I colored in as if they were the same flower. And I think it's because if you follow the stems, they come out the same way. So those, let's do, some darkness here at the top. And this color that I'm coloring over was definitely one of the tombos. And again, we'll put a pink top there. And that definitely looks more pronounced than that one. Let's come in. Have we used this yet? What does that even say? Mauve. And let's just do it at the base. Oh. And again here. Does make it a little awkward to color right on top. The pencils on my right hand side, but again, I don't really have the space to put them anywhere else. And let's see if we can use this one to sort of bring them together. Because it's such a small surface area, trying to tie them in may not be that impactful as something like over here. Again, definitely more warm than I would have liked, but I think it's fine. And then we just have these ones right there. Let me put a red center in the middle. And because it layers on that fluorescent orange, it's not as dark as I'd like. Oh, so let's use a darker color. And darkening that up in the middle definitely makes that orange pop a lot more. I like that. So just put a little bit of this around that crease line. The reason I'm doing that is it just seems to make the orange pop a lot more. Yeah, I like that. Gonna just do at the edge here. And if it looks like I don't know what I'm doing, I mean, I'm coloring, so I know I'm doing that, but I like playing and testing things out, but you know, maybe I should put the darkest part on the edge of the petal, or maybe I should test out my pens and pencils before I start. Or maybe I'm just trying to have some fun, and so we're gonna just color and get what we get. Yeah, I like that one. I think next to this one, because I do like how that green looks, I think that might actually be my favorite. This one looks a little muddy to me, and I think it's just because of the color. It graded up versus I'm not sure what I thought it would do. So I'll put that over there. And then this one, I think we'll get some, because I like when the dark really highlights how light the rest of it is. It's not coming out very dark. Oh, and I can feel that pencil already breaking. And that could just be me. I might have been too rough on it when I was coloring. I only think this one here needs some help. So this looks like a bright orange. Let's see what happens if we make this look a little darker, but not go all the way to the edge. Because again, then you'll get that little pop of the mild liner that we put behind it. And I think it just makes it look a little bit more interesting, if not a lot more effort. And to be honest, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if I like how it looks, but I did it to that one, so I'm going to do it to this one. I think it helps. It still looks a little bland to me, and I think that's part of the problem, is that it just looks kind of meh. Let's color in the center with this, which is my Sarasa vintage pen. Yeah, I'm not sure that it's pulling very spring. I'm not really getting that vibe here. And I think it's because not so much these here, but this one definitely pulls warmer, and so does this one here. So maybe we'll leave our leaves really light. And so let me go ahead and color all of the leaves in with just the one color, and then once I come back, we'll work on some shading. So already that adds a nice little pop of texture. And then let's use some of this lemon yellow. If you watched any of those videos from people who do coloring as an art form, when you are by the flower, you'd probably want to darken this area up on the leaf because it's lying beneath the flower. And so going with the lighter color really isn't how you should be doing this. But I want to add some lightness to the leaf to make this evoke more spring. If any of that makes sense. And I can see a faint bit of it, but my hand is already starting to cramp up. Again, you do have to put a lot more pressure on these to get what I know can be a color payoff with my other pencils. This one here is just called green. And I just want to do right in the middle of the flower. And if you're new to coloring and you've stumbled on my channel, this is not something that I do here a lot of the times. It's just something that I got inspired to start up because I used to really love coloring. But my friend Andy colors quite a bit, and Andy inspires me to do a whole bunch of things. I'm like, oh, now I want to do it. And then I went down the rabbit hole of ColorTube, and I realized that there's a whole subsect of people who are doing coloring in coloring books. And whenever you see anything that's labeled adult coloring, it doesn't necessarily mean it's adult themed, but especially here on YouTube, you want to earmark that, you know, one is friendly for kids, and that's a different audience, and if you're monetized, it's a different monetization level, meaning nothing, or you're really talking to adults. So when you watch them, you'll hear them do disclaimers that this is meant for adults, but it's not in the, you know, rated R adult kind of meaning, but it's meant for, yeah, I'm coloring in a coloring book, but I'm an adult doing it, and it really is meant as a mindfulness or artistic pursuit. I mean, considering the cost of some of these things, these are definitely not things for children. Well, if I had children, they definitely wouldn't be for mine. They would get the cheap stuff. So I'm just adding some of this in various spots. No rhyme, no reason. I just think it adds a little bit more green to the page. I don't know that I'm getting the spring vibes. Maybe I should have just stuck to the pinks and the oranges and the yellows, the blue and this sort of mauvey dusty rose color. Definitely doesn't give me spring. It might also pop more once I do the other two colors so that there's a distinction, and then I probably will do some lettering around here by way of a quote, or just calling this winter, spring, summer, and fall. I don't know. I think I can use an eraser. I mean, it is pencil. Well, it's still there, but it's definitely more faint than it was. And that one's not moving. All right, guys. Well, I'd love to know what you think. I still have not decided if I'm going to color the background of this at all. I kind of like how the white peeps up from it. And then that way I don't have to also think about the background. And because I plan to do some writing here, then I also plan to keep that as is. All right, well, that is spring episode 2 in this color along with me. Hopefully it was relaxing to you guys. And as always, aloha.